'Twas the third night of Hanukkah, and all through the house not a creature was stirring, except Dr. Kraus. His wife was sleeping, his kids were tucked in, but somehow sleep still evaded him. He thought of his therapist. It was too late to phone him. He considered his options, Ambien or melatonin. The candles burned out as he sat in his chair. The sweet smell of fried potato still lingered in the air. The Krauses' house was unique on their street, displaying a single simple menorah, not in elaborate electric lighting feat. In the house to the left and the house to the right, they called that Eve Christmas, not the third Hanukkah light. In those neighboring houses, socks were for mantles, not floors. And for some inexplicable reason, they brought their pine trees indoors. The kids were all nestled and dreaming of toys, hoping a magic man deemed them good girls and boys. And their parents also rested from their budget spreadsheets, exhausted from months of making ends meet. But Dr. Kraus was wide awake, with neither excitement nor glee. This season, this world, he could just not let it be. There was darkness, he feared, wherever he looked. His soul was on fire, but his energy was cooked. In Washington, in Jerusalem, folks were losing their minds. It made Kraus want to just close the blinds. Then there was Pittsburgh and Poway and now Jersey City too. It made Kraus feel sad and a bit scared to be a Jew. As his kids placed in the window a menorah for the world to see, Kraus thought with sorrow about their current reality. Was it safer, he wondered, to keep the candles on the inside? He didn't want to call attention, though he didn't want to have to hide. And his neighbors, it seemed, didn't share in his fear. They weren't anxious, he thought. They were full of good cheer. Their houses twinkled with unabashed light displays. Their jingling bells betrayed no sorrows or dismays. As he left work that afternoon, his heart was sinking. He wanted to shake his coworkers and ask, "What are you thinking?" His colleagues had wished him Merry Christmas instead. It was hard to be merry with all these thoughts running through his head. Now Kraus was sitting late at night in his jammies, wondering if the family just needed a vacation to Miami. When suddenly something shook him from his stupor, a thud on the roof like a wayward paratrooper. There was crunching and cursing, though there was no snow, and Kraus could have sworn he heard a faint "no, no, no." Their chimney was tiny and their fireplace rarely used, so the visitor slid down the drain pipe while most of the Krauses snoozed. Kraus was too scared to move, too befuddled to talk, until at the door he heard a quiet, gentle knock. Kraus tentatively opened, and there stood in his door a figure as tall as one man, but as wide as 3 or 4. In walked the visitor to stand in the dim light, and Kraus got a full look at this unbelievable sight. Bespectacled and bebearded, with his cap on his head, and wouldn't you know it, he was dressed all in red. Kraus stuttered and stammered. He could not think quick. They don't teach you in Hebrew school what to say to St. Nick. It was his guest who spoke first. He said, "Please forgive my intrusion. I am sure my appearance causes some confusion. I know I am not one of your tribe. At least the menorah gave me that vibe. I'm looking for the O'Connors. Is this not their house?" "That's 414. This is 416, replied Dr. Kraus. "I had a feeling," said Nick as he glanced at the chair. He gave an infectious, jolly smile and ran his fingers through his white beard hair. "My flying motorcycle has run out of gas. I've called AAA, but they'll take a few minutes, alas." "Motorcycle?" said Kraus. You use AAA? Didn't there used to be a reindeer that pulled some kind of sleigh?" Nicholas laughed with a kind ho, ho, ho. "I've upgraded since then. Also, PETA said the reindeer had to go." Now, he said, beaming with pride, I have a much more practical and much cooler ride. But I never thought about gas when I flew in my sleigh. If I can just sit for a moment, then I'll be on my way. Kraus could see his guest was tired, so what was he to do? The exhausted Father Christmas was invited in by the sleepless Jew. He gestured towards the chair. Nick made a sigh of hazy joy. He gently lowered down his giant body upon the straining, lazy boy. I haven't any cookies, apologized Dr. Kraus, but if you'd like some latkes, I can go wake my spouse. Just water is fine, I'm so sick of milk, though I wouldn't refuse a brandy or something of that ilk. As Kraus fetched the liquor, his guest looked around. It had been a while since he'd seen so little tinsel abound. So tell me, new friend, what keeps you awake? You have no presents to hide or honeyed Christmas hams to bake. Kraus sat in the other chair across from the jolly old man. He didn't know quite where to start, but after a moment, he began. I was watching the candles as the last one flickered out. The darkness seemed so heavy then, with loneliness and doubt. I fear the world has come unmoored, that we're all a bit adrift. To be honest, I was thinking that a little Christmas might give my spirits a lift. Would you entertain a question from a tired, humble Jew? How do you stay so happy with all the work left to do? As many presents as you bring, as many smiles as you make, you go back north to start all over. It seems a lot to take. Do you ever get discouraged with the world's most ugly bits? Do you ever want to just hang up the sack and tell the world you've called it quits? Santa didn't rush to answer or chortle ho, ho, ho. He just sat and sniffed his brandy, then he drank it in one go. Hanukkah always struck me as strange, he then said with the smallest grin. We celebrate the birth of God, you celebrate a military win. Christmas is a time of joy and cheer because redemption is soon at hand, but Hanukkah is a remembrance of a group of heroes who fought to free their land. And what is your symbol for the victory of your Maccabean camp? Not a stone or a shield or even a sword, but a mini candled lamp. It seems to me that your holiday is the story of the fight, but also a reminder that in the end, it's our job to be the light. The miracle of Hanukkah is not that the oil lasted more than one day. The miracle is that they had just that much, and they lit it anyway. What I admire about the Jews, you see, is not the way you cope. It's that Judaism at its very core is the constant expression of hope. You walk around, dear Dr. Kraus, with this great big weight on your shoulder. I worry you will get crushed if you keep leaning alone on Sisyphus's boulder. Because that's the beauty of this Hanukkah, and that's the reason I decided to come see ya. On the first night, you light only one candle, a brave act for the darkest day, and maybe that's all you can handle. But soon you see that one candle brings more, first 2 and then 3, and then tomorrow there'll be 4. For when we bring light, we are never alone. One burning wick lights another, and somehow each flame has grown. Your neighbors are so cheery as they pray for their Savior, but you have hope, and that changes your behavior. You don't have to light the whole world by yourself, but you can light just one candle. You don't need the help of this old elf. Come, Dr. Kraus, let us relight your menorah. It will be our little party, though I'm in no shape to hora. Then he reached into his sack and rummaged around until his well-worn kippah and 4 new candles were found. Then Kraus in his PJs and Nick in his festive dressings lit the Hanukkah lights and recited together the blessings. I'm glad that I parked here Santa said with a smile. Doing that reminds me of my childhood. I have not done it in a while. Kraus was confused. He tried to think of what to say, but Santa had started towards the door to greet the AAA. He was leaving the house, but before he passed through the door, he turned around to address Kraus once more. I don't have a present for you, but it's not because you're a Jew. I didn't bring you anything because to me, the present is you. Don't give up on the light or jump off that tight wire. You'd be amazed how contagious is your fire. We need you out there to be a bearer of light. It's not the joyful, but the hopeful who bring the end to the night. And with a wink and a nod, he was gone just as quickly as he came. Kraus was amazed how nimbly he ascended that storm drain. Kraus went back in the house and climbed into his bed with new, hopeful thoughts running through his head. And as he drifted off to sleep, he heard the motorcycle take off. And he heard Santa saying, Happy Hanukkah, and to all, Chag Sameach.